Water is a constant in human affairs. It's a means to power, and power itself. It is life. It's also been the cause of grave tragedy. Nowhere is this more apparent than in California.
We're right now at one of the ancient irrigation ditches and the whole system of irrigation ditches here in the Owens Valley in the Bishop area. Before any settlers or anybody came in here, we irrigated the whole valley with green. As where you're standing right now, there used to be water running through this area.
It's reported ethnographically that people had extensive irrigation systems, that they were irrigating fields, flooding fields to promote the growth of different wild resources.
We take pride in how our ancestors kept land and utilized the resources, to sustain life.
The irrigation was spread all over to create life. It created life all throughout the valley.
I'm Kathy Jefferson Bancroft. I'm descended from the people who've lived here for thousands of years. I'm also the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Lone Pine Pike Shoshone Reservation. We know we have our creation stories here. All of our stories have to do with these surrounding mountains and water. And that's who we are as a people.
Where I'm sitting right now is an old Indian ditch, part of the system that irrigated the entire Bishop area. Amazing to me is that what they did and how they come through this area, because once you spread water, you spread life.
You hear the birds singing, the bees buzzing, the flowers just radiant with life, and you look up and you see the snow-covered mountains and you just think, wow, this is an amazing place.
I mean, there's water here, but there it goes.
What's clear from both from history and from prehistory and then into modern times is that water is a very valuable resource.
Water on a tribal perspective, I mean, it's just it's the driving force. It's the lifeblood to our culture.
Like the old saying says, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over, and that's what's starting to happen right now.
The LA Aqueduct is about a mile above here, and it's all flowing south, and that's unfortunately where the water is.
All of our land over the years, 100 years since aqueduct been here, have been dried up. I call it straight desertification.
The city of Los Angeles and all that's around it couldn't be what it is today without imported water. As the 1800s came to an end, the city of Los Angeles, really, it might even be better to have called it at that point a town, was approaching 100,000 people. But it was all done with local water. And surrounding them in the basin, it was all agriculture. Los Angeles County was the #1 agricultural county in the nation.
The citrus boom brought all kinds of people into Southern California. But of course, all of that citrus had to be irrigated. You could not dry farm oranges and lemons.
The real estate folks, the folks who owned land that had not yet been developed, could see that it was going to stop. The city engineer of the water department, William Mulholland, actually told, publicly stated that this city will have to max out at about 200,000 people unless we can find another water source.
So Mulholland knew that they needed water in order for this dream of a large LA metropolitan city to occur. Where is he going to go? I can't think at that time period of another place that would have worked out as well for them as the Owens Valley, even though it was 200 miles away. The geology of the area really makes it happen. The Owens Valley is really the youngest basin of a very large province called the Basin and Range Province. The fact that it's young means that, one, you're next to an amazing source of moisture. Any drop of water or any snow that lands in that area will eventually make its way down into the valley, into the Owens River. Now, why does that matter? Well, because you're at such a high elevation, even though you're 200 miles away from LA, if you tap into that water, you can actually move that water downhill without any excess energy. It has its own potential energy to take it all the way down to LA. I think they chose well.
River was doing a job in the Owens Valley. There was tens of thousands of residents at the time.
And these people were all hoping to tap that agricultural potential. It had a really promising future. It's exactly at this time that Fred Eaton had decided that the Owens Valley water is what LA needs for its future.
Los Angeles came in, tapped the water, acquired almost all of the land that was available to get the water rights, and took the water south via the LA Aqueduct.
Once they had the water rights in place, then of course they needed to come up with the money to build the infrastructure that was actually going to accomplish this thing. I mean, it's a fantastic project.
During the campaigns to get voters in the city of Los Angeles to approve the money to have bonds to build the LA Aqueduct, the voters were told very strongly, in very strong words by the publishers of the LA Times, anyone who decides to go to and vote against these bonds is an enemy of the city. They weren't told the honest thing, which was not, we will reach a limit of growth. They were told, if we don't vote these bonds, it means the life of the city, that this city will die. So what was behind that? Why was it so important to at such hyperbole, really, to sell this to people? What was behind it, I believe very strongly, was the desire to maximize the real estate values of these dry lands. Behind the engineers and the people who made the aqueduct happen were some other people in Los Angeles. And I think of them as the power elite at the time.
Harrison Gray Otis of the LA Times, Moses Sherman, Fred Eaton, E.H. Harriman of the Union Pacific Railroad. They all knew that there was plenty of water, so much water in the Owens River, that it had far more than what Los Angeles needed immediately just for the city's own needs. So there's going to be a lot of so-called surplus water made available, which Los Angeles would then be able to sell to all those emerging citrus orchards in Southern California.
One of the historians of California who has said that Los Angeles was not a city, it's a real estate conspiracy.
Regardless of what you think about the LA Owens Valley Aqueduct project, it's hard, or actually impossible, not to admire the thing from an engineering standpoint. It takes that water from enormous volumes of water, 250 miles almost, across the deserts of Southern California. I mean, it's a hell of a thing.
It starts at Lee Vining, what you call Lee Vining intake up to Canyon here. And it goes by tunnel all the way around that side of that hill and goes through a pipeline. And it goes down and goes all the way to Grant Lake. Then there they take it down through a cement tunnel and goes to West Portal. And it goes by tunnel from there to East Portal. And all that water goes south. It dumps into what they call the Owens River. And it all dumps into Hayweed. And from Hayweed goes by pipeline again. It's all by siphon. It goes down, clear down to LA.
In November of 1913, Los Angeles held the great dedication ceremony of the completed aqueduct system. You had a crowd of at least 30,000 Angelinos who had gathered to see the water tumble down the Owens Mouth Cascades for the very first time. And it was there that Mulholland gave his famous 5-word speech. There it is, take it.
And they were able to grow for the following decades all the way just with that water from the Owens Valley area up to almost 3 million people in the city of Los Angeles.
The city of LA definitely has the Owens Valley to thank for the development and who they are today and what they've become today.
Between 1905 and the 1930s, they did a complete overhaul of the socioeconomic system in this valley.
They cut off all these creeks and they consolidated them to drain the water out of the area.
Farming, just went belly up. People moved away. People's livelihoods completely suffered, and they didn't care.
The Owens Valley actually did something that happened nowhere in California, and that is the population actually declined.
They've sucked all the water, the life, the color out of this area and sent it to LA. They stole the paradise that was here and moved it to LA.
People were angry, they got their bankers involved, they got their leaders involved, but nobody could overcome this wave of invasion by the city of Los Angeles.
With the farmers pressed to the wall because of the agricultural depression and the drought, they really had no choice but to sell out while the selling was good. And LA went on a deliberate divide and conquer strategy, basically telling, sell out now. If you wait too long, we'll be able to get your property pretty much for free if you wait too long.
It's not as alive a place as it could have been and could be because of the change that came with the stream diversions on the surface and groundwater pumping both that have been the package that came with the city of Los Angeles's takeover from a distance of this very special valley.
Once the water started being diverted at the diversion point at Tinnemaha, the entire stretch of the lower Owens River went dry. And of course, no water reached Owens Lake.
The USGS drilled a 1,000-foot deep core hole through Owens Lake to get the history in the last 800,000 years. From these different types of data, they could figure Owens Lake was not only about 213 feet deep, it overspilled into the next lower basin. But if you backtrack from Panamint to Searles to China to Owens, all of that you could say is from this Owens River that was coming into the Owens Lake.
It had the surface area pretty much the equivalent of Lake Tahoe.
Was told it was going to be dry. They all said, there's no way you could dry that lake out.
In the last 800,000 years, there was no piece of scientific data to suggest that it actually dried out and became desiccated. Until 1913, LA Aqueduct gets built, diverts the water away from Owens River into the LA Aqueduct. It took about 6, 7, 8 years, desiccated. There are multiple effects of taking water away from its home.
The lake gave way to a vast, barren alkali flats, so something like a California version of the Bonneville Salt Flats.
The desert floor is just blowing away. It's created a dust hazard everywhere, not just the Owens Lake now.
That dry lake out there is the biggest it's the biggest producer of PM10.
If you want to study the negative effects of particulate matter, 10 microns or less, you go to Owens Lake.
When it's a really bad dust day, you know, we're asked to stay indoors, of course, and to not be outside because it's for the better of our health.
People in LA have complained about when we get these high windstorms, they complained because their paint started chipping off their cars and they traced it back to here. A man who was in a private plane, he took off from Lone Pine. The dust was coming off of here. He was going to Arizona. He followed that cloud of dust all the way to Arizona. That was as far as he was going, but it kept going past there.
Today, ironically, LA has to make some releases of Owens Valley water to keep down dust.
And many people today will say, did no one care? Was that okay at the time? And if it was, why? One of the things was it put people to work. The other thing was they basically said the greater good is people. We basically tried to create a world where there were no water limits.
The lessons that history provides are often either forgotten very quickly or they're willfully ignored. And as a historian, I find that incredibly frustrating.
The city of Los Angeles, after acquiring all of the water rights of the Owens Valley, in 1930 they decided to go farther north and tap into the streams that were feeding Mono Lake.
You have a whole new set of victims, including the white residents of the Mono Basin, and of course the Native Americans who are still there in the Mono Basin, who are now going to experience what Native Americans to the south had experienced in the decades earlier.
I would like my descendants to know this was a beautiful place to grow up. As children, we hunted and fished, we played in the water from Lee Vining Creek, we dove off tufas at Mono Lake. The meadows had beautiful wildflowers in the spring. Then the creek was dammed up and the water was diverted to the Los Angeles pipeline. Now that meadow is no longer. It's all sagebrush. Mono Lake has gone down 40 feet, and the tufas are on dry land. I come from a family that believes in protecting this country. A great uncle in World War I, 3 uncles and my dad in World War II. And this very country we fought for has taken valuable things, such as land and water, from us.
A lot of people now think, well, that was the past, that was the 1930s. It's not over. They are not done with us yet, and I think they are on a move to dry us up.
What comes off of the surface isn't enough for them. They go to the point to take it from the ground, depleting the water table, and the groundwater.
Even the sagebrush are having a hard time surviving around here because the groundwater table has been lowered so much that they can't survive, and their roots go down 50, 60 feet.
If you lower the water table due to pumping, then those plants, those very hardy, resistant plants, you start to kill off those plant communities.
The more they pump, the more they're going to drag the color and the life out of this area. They're just going to kill us off.
I was going out in the field year after year, watching the same plots die. But I realized at some point my data, every time they decided to not listen and continue pumping, yeah, it would mean another data point for me and might prove me right. But I have to spend the rest of my career watching these things die.
A lot of our meadows have been lost, and a lot are still being destroyed. You might say we're converting meadows into blowing dust.
We had our own history and own religions here before anybody ever come in and showed us other religions. And our religion was to live with the land.
As Native people, we always look at the big picture. We take care of the fish, we take care of Mother Earth, we take care of one another.
My family, my people have been here for thousands of years. We're not going anywhere. They've tried to get us out of here, and we're not leaving. And when you guys are all gone, because we see people come and go all the time, we're the ones that are going to be left here with the mess to fix it up. You know, we fill up our swimming pools, we water our lawns. Who's giving up that water so that we can have it? People don't think that.
The problem is we have a California growth model that doesn't like to think about such a thing as limits.
Our society has deemed everything as growth. Let's grow, 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 grow. Well, cancer does the same thing, and humanity has become, I look at it as almost a cancer on the face of the earth.
Whether we like it or not, we're bound to natural order of laws, and this is in conflict with that.
Enough is enough. Man's history right now is destroying the earth. Their whole attitude about let's grow, it's uncontrolled growth.
What are you going to do to change the next 100 years? That's where it's going to make the difference. How are you going to change the way you use water? What are you going to do to make the next 100 years different?
Get involved. Don't sit there and be quiet. Because you're accomplice to the destruction of Mother Earth if you sit there and just say everything's fine.
You know, if you're happy in a world of cockroaches and pigeons and weeds, then you don't have anything to worry about. Your conscience is clear, because that's what you're creating in Owens Valley.
A lot of people look at the Owens Valley and compare us to, they don't want to be like us. It's a microcosm of what the world could be.
I hope it serves as a warning. I know it has, because I've heard that in the Central Valley even when I was young. Don't let us become another Owens Valley.
You can come up here and look at this and not be, impressed. You're a lost cause,
When's it going to turn around, or if Owens Valley is not a good enough example of it, I mean, what is going to be a good enough example of that?
To most people, they have no idea where their water comes from, so they don't really care.
We want people to start thinking, there are people up here, you're affecting people, this means something to us. LA never has enough water, and they still want to take more.